Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. We're glad you're here. I'm Kevin McDonald, your host for this grand adventure, and I thank you for joining us. You see, our mission is to create a positive, personal connection to all things with courage and love. We invite terrific guests, interesting topics, and great conversation, all in a fun, entertaining way. And we always manage to learn something, too. So I hope you will stay right where you are for this episode of Positive Talk Radio. And welcome everybody to Positive Talk Radio. It's a Friday afternoon, and we're just kind of sitting here having a nice time, and we're talking to somebody that I've been interested in talking to for a while. Our executive producer Holly ran into him, and he is a videographer. I think that's how you say it. Is that how you say it, Chris?
That's correct. Yeah.
Good. Chris Chavez is with Chavez, right?
Chavez, correct. Yeah, you nailed it.
Chavez. And he's a videographer of note, and he's been doing this for a while. And we thought we'd just have him on because I don't get a chance to talk to videographers very much because they're busy doing stuff. Yeah. And they're a lot of times they're in their studio editing stuff, which to me is like, ugh. But he seems to enjoy it a lot. So welcome to Positive Talk. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. I thoroughly enjoy podcasting and talk about things I'm passionate about. So I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with you.
And you had a podcast at one time. What was it called?
So a good friend of mine and I did this podcast called The Podcast with No Name. And it literally, we couldn't think of a name. So that was the name. It literally was a podcast that changed every week on different topics and different things. So it was fun while it
lasted. What terminated it? What happened?
Life, work, and we just didn't have enough time to do it. And then it just, one of those things. But I enjoyed every minute of creating a podcast. So I love it.
I have to tell you, it's getting so easy to do now because we're doing this live, and this will go automatically to YouTube and to Facebook and stuff. So the editing is a lot less, provided that you can actually do it live. Because because it would really suck if you couldn't do it live. Because especially if you sucked and couldn't, So it's important that you be able to do that. But being a videographer is a completely different world than what being a podcast is about, because you have to actually plan stuff, and put it all together and create stuff. So tell us how the process works.
Sure. So the way that I do, I kind of work with clients is we have an initial beginning conversation as to what the needs are for your video content. And so we kind of dissect it a little bit there. And then if it's hypothetically, let's say it's an introduction video, I ask the client to prepare like a 5 or 4 bullet point list. That way it's something like a roadmap that we can go off of. And I know how to structure my shot list according to what they're going to say. And then we talk about the time, the day that we're going to go and shoot. And then we just go into that project and work it out and make a really good inspirational video.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions because I can. And number one, and number two, I want to ask about the podcasting world as it relates now to video, because it's becoming, it's not enough, I don't think, anymore to just put up a audio and edit it and stick it out there. You really need to start looking at doing are you familiar with Joe Rogan?
I am, yes.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm sure you've listened to or watched his podcast and what he does, and that's also a video cast. Correct. And have you kind of, because you're in the business, it's like I used to be in the restaurant business, so every time I go into a restaurant, I analyze what they're doing and their menu and their content and where their kitchen's set up and all that stuff. Do you do the same thing when you're talking about video and you're watching a video being done, on how they're doing it and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's almost the same kind of thing of, if you're an actor and you watch a movie, you know how the movies are filmed, and so you kind of think about how certain things are shot and how you would do it differently. And I definitely do that, but it's a fun, like, thinking exercise that comes along with that. So No, I embrace that. It's kind of fun.
So if we were to if you and if I were to come to you and say, "Hey, I have this boatload of money that's sitting in this hand and I want to give it to you, but in the process, I want to create a really cool dynamic video
Mhm.
podcast." How many cameras do we need? What's the setup like? How does all that work?
It all starts with storytelling. So before we would even get down to that, I'd want to make sure that we're telling the adequate story that you need. And from that story, then we can kind of branch it out and start to kind of talk about, okay, do we need a camera one on a specific spot, a camera two, and how we would tell that story based on the equipment that we have and the equipment that we need. And so everything boils down to storytelling. If you're not telling the story, then you're not kind of providing any value to what it is that you're trying to promote. And so storytelling is the underlining key term for for this video.
I see. So if we were to tell a story now, like most of the time, he's got guests in the studio.
Mhm.
It makes it a lot more complicated when you have guests that are on like I use StreamYard, and it's a lot more complicated to do a in studio and somebody on StreamYard, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of it does kind of get a little complicated rather quickly. That's where the whole planning beforehand, and sometimes you could even just test these things out just to see what's working, what's not working, and then when it comes time to actually filming it, you got it nailed down. You know what to do.
See, my pro let me explain to you my problem. See, I do things and Holly gets real irritated with me, but like to do things like off the cuff, like almost improvisational theater.
Mhm.
And so I don't if you were to come to me and say, "Well, let's plan this out," I'd say, "Well, I have no earthly idea what you're talking about. How are we going to go do that?" So how do you teach people to plan it out and to get it all set so it's done right?
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's kind of the opposite. I've a lot of people that I've worked with, it's they kind of understand where they want to go, but they don't either know what to say in their videos or they're really shy in front of the camera. They just don't know how to conduct themselves. They go from this just normal non-professional conversation to when the camera comes up they turn into this character that's really business and very robotic, and it's not what they want, and they know that they do this, and it's that coaching aspect to kind of help them kind of mentally take them out of that mindset and to just breathe and just have a normal conversation. So that's honestly where I talk to a lot of business owners about. It's more of that than the planning.
It's interesting that you say that because when I first started doing a radio show, which was way back in 2002, I was doing it with a partner of mine, and his name was Mark, and he was very funny, very energetic, very on top of things, and we could have a tremendous conversation, just he and I, just having this great time. So we thought, this would be great. We could do this on the radio, and we could talk about what we're passionate about and stuff. And so we get to the studio, we sit down, they turn, that in this case there was a little light that said on air, and
Yeah,
he was like, "Na, na, 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 na," it went on air, and he was like, hello?" And it was it was like and so I get what you're saying. It was like he lost every bit of himself because suddenly he was self-conscious and he was
yeah,
all that kind of stuff because he wasn't the same guy anymore. So
yep.
it's hard to do, I suppose.
It is, yeah, especially because of COVID made that more apparent of, since we couldn't go out and meet people, it was like this for the longest time. It forced them to realize, okay, I'm gonna need to step in front of the camera and actually start to do the things that I'm afraid of. And in a little silver lining with COVID, it's kind of a good thing because now they understand the importance of video, the importance of podcasts, the importance of these creative mediums that are going to help express what you need.
Which is really cool for you because they need to have you can't do that. I have a friend. Here's another story for you. I have a friend, and he wanted to do a video of an interview with an elderly gentleman and his children, and so they each got a laptop, and they each got and dialed into Zoom, and sitting right across away from each other. And then he thought that he could maybe cut the Zoom and edit that and stuff. And it turned out that everybody, all four people, because they were all four in the same shot, and they were all just sitting there. So it wasn't even a viable thing to even do, because you have to it's to do video with, like we were saying, with Joe Rogan and stuff. You have to have a couple of cameras. You have to
Yeah.
have a camera operator that can and a director that can go back and forth and make it look intelligent. I would think is am I right in that?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you need a little team, especially with something like Joe Rogan, to get all that, because he has a lot of really interesting, deep questions with a lot of unique guests. And so to capture everything that they talk about, yeah, you're going to need multiple people to keep track of what's going on and how it's going to look once the show's over.
Exactly. Now, how long does it take? He does a 3-hour show. I
Hmm.
assume most of it's live. Does
Yeah.
he but I assume some of it they must have to edit. How long does it take to edit a 3-hour show?
Um, with something like his, I don't think it would be too crazy long, because it's all set up in one location. So it's cutting back and forth between the host, the host, maybe to something that they're showing off of their laptop. Because I know they go to certain things depending on the topic of that week. But I mean, I don't think something like that takes too terribly long. Um, if he did something like what he normally does, but then at the same time had outside correspondents doing something and then back into it, it might take a little bit longer just to make sure everything matches up. But in studio, I don't think it's that long to edit that.
So and the guest I've got coming up next, and I have her at 2 o'clock. She was on Comedy Central. I forget the Daily Show.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I love the Daily Show.
Yeah, and she did a segment there with one of the comics, and that kind of filming and art form is a lot more complicated, isn't it? You have to have
Yeah.
multiple cameras and feed in and out of different places and stuff like that. So that is that something that you would like to do, or do you like doing what you're doing with just yourself?
I mean, I would love to eventually lead into something like that. But the big draw for me, the big thing that I love is just telling a story, taking this tangible, this idea and turning it into something tangible, and making it inspiration, making you feel something, giving you some kind of emotion. I think that dives back to my background because I'm a theater major. And so taking what I learned in front of the camera, being a performer, feeling the audience as you say your lines, I think it's the same kind of momentum that I carried with me being behind the camera. So it's yeah, it's that storytelling, the creative, just anything creating.
Which did you like better, being an actor or doing what you're doing now?
Oh man, they're both absolutely amazing, but there's a performance high that you get when you're acting. So you get these three little stages of performing. And I don't know if you've ever done any like stage performance or anything like that, but the moment you're about to go on stage, you're waiting for your cue line, your heart starts to beat, you hear the audience, and then you deliver your first line, and then you're not nervous. The second point is when you say something during a performance and you make them laugh, and then you get that energy. And then the third part is after the show, you have that performance high of like, we did such a good job. I can't wait for next night. So
You'll
it's
you'll appreciate this story. I think I've told it before, but I don't think I've told it on a podcast. When I was young, I was in my early 20s. I went to Green River Community College and joined the theater department. And one of the shows we did was Fiddler on the Roof.
mm,
And I was Lazar Wolf the Butcher. And
yes.
and as you know, in the way the scenes work in a play, ever there's blocking, and everybody's got to be it's supposed to be in a certain place. Everybody's in place, and the curtain goes up, and then the thing starts. Well, we were doing a dinner show. There were 300 people in the audience. They were all having dinner and having a good time, and the show begins, and this was scene 4, which is the to life scene. To life, like I'm. And anyway, so I'm Lazar Wolf, and I'm supposed to be stage downstage in front of the curtain, or not in front of it, right behind the curtain. and the bartender is Lazar Wool, or excuse me, is Reb Morka, and he's supposed to be off to my right behind the bar, and I'm supposed to turn to him and say, "Reb Morka, a bottle of your best brandy," and 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 we've done this, there's a great song in scene 3, and it was going very, very well. And the guy who was the stagehand was the nighttime director. The daytime director was doing our show. This is Green River. The nighttime director was the stagehand, so he had to physically open the curtain. And so I'm standing there, stage down center. I'm getting ready. I've got my watch in my hand. I'm ready. My heart's beating. You can hear the crowd on the other side, and they're anticipating the start of the next scene. And I look to my right. Reb Morka's not there. And I say, Joe, Joe. That's the stagehand. And he looks at me and says, "What?" And I said, "Reb Morka, he's not there." He gets a sly look on his face and smiles at me and raises the curtain.
I love it.
Now there are 300 people out there, and they're and I'm supposed to turn to my right and talk to a guy who's not there. And so I just yelled Reb Morka at the top of my lungs, and you could hear. Now the green room was down the side of the theater, all the way almost to the back. You could hear somebody running
The
along
running.
running along the side of the theater until he got to the front, and then he went to the bar, and then everything was fine.
I
But
love it.
that's the type of exciting what excitement that live theater can do
Yeah.
for you, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
Same. And I mean, and going behind the camera was the next logical step because
It
I
is.
know how the front works, the front side of the camera works. And now on the back side, it's really cool to help people that don't understand, how to I don't want to say communicate, but how to feel natural in front of the camera. So I use a lot what I've done in theater and kind of help bring that out. Even tongue twisters that you would learn in theater, I bring that over to kind of help because the little fun random tongue twisters that you do before a show that make no sense. It's great because it mentally takes you out of the moment that you're trying to go into. That way, when you're ready to go, you're loose and you bring all that information back into your head and you're ready to go.
Is that how you teach people who are not, there are a lot of guys that are CEOs, and they're high powered guys, and they can be in front of the boardroom, and they
Hmm.
can talk, and they can do, but they put them in front of a camera and on the spot, and they kind of freeze up. How do you get folks to unfreeze up? Is it
Well, a lot of the times, I'll film like if we're doing an opening introduction of "Hi, my name is so and so. This is my business." I'll I'll let them do what they think they want to do at the beginning, and then I'll give them little notes like a director would. And then once I get them to a place where it's starting to shift, where I'm starting to get them out of their frozen state, I do a playback and I show them the first video that we did as opposed to the one that we are moving towards, and they can see that difference of like, wow, I'm really like that. Okay. And then we go slowly but slowly that way with a little bit of coaching of, okay, what you said was great, but it's a little bit more on a threatening side. You need to you want to invite them in. So let's bring it back. Let's play with the fictions of your voice and different ways of words you want to emphasize. And we kind of just break it down from there. It is just like theater. And it's one of those things where you do it once, the next time you work with that client, they understand the rhythms and they understand the little motivations that they have to being a camera because they've had that experience. They just never had that experience doing something like that. And theater was such an amazing training ground that I had no idea will come full circle back to doing what I do for a living.
So you've almost become a drama coach at the same time that you're planning the video and getting ready for the different shots and things, because
Correct.
you're trying to make it interesting and inviting for the people that are watching.
Yeah, because I always say your personality is what drives everything. If you're a loud talker, talk loud. If you talk with your hands, talk with your hands. As long as it's something that's not too crazy distracting from what the message, the value you're trying to get out, do it. And because that's what's going to make you stand out over your competition is your uniqueness. So don't hide that. You don't want to be like your competition. You want to be different. You want to be something a little bit better. And that's a great starting point is you. It all starts with you.
See, and I tell people that, and it's like they don't believe me that it's because because it does, and when you're doing this and you can be comfortable with it, and it's like you're very comfortable in front of a camera. I can
Mhm.
see that, and it
Yeah.
works out really well for you. And I've been told that I'm kind of okay at it too.
You're
But
great. You're great.
you're just saying that. You don't mean that.
One
Uh,
take. That's all we need from you. I love it.
Well, this is, I love doing I'm with you. If I could learn how to work a camera, I would do what you do.
It just takes just playing around, experimenting, film. I honestly learned how to shoot and how to market from YouTube. I created a YouTube channel that was completely separate from anything professional, just something fun. And it taught me how to create a thumbnail, how to promote that episode, how to write, descriptive keywords that are going to help get my video heard and seen through the algorithm of YouTube. And it was one of those things that just, yet again, I just did it for fun and it started to grow into something even more. It trained me. So now I have a YouTube channel for work that I do every Saturday. So it's kind of neat.
What do you do on that YouTube channel, and what's it called, and how does somebody find it?
Yeah, so it's under my company name, Chavez Creative Company. Super simple. And the show pretty much is just weekly tips on video marketing. So tips and tricks, how to feel comfortable in front of the camera, all these little things. I kind of break them down into a little bit easier, digestible way. So it's anyone that's starting out can learn, or people that have been establishing their business can kind of hone in on their skills and just kind of reevaluate and revisit things that they've done.
And looking at the algorithms and the keywords and all of that is becoming as important almost as the video.
It's true. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, especially the big thing is your thumbnail as well, because it's one of those things where the title, it's almost like the beginning of a book. You read a book, and if the book starts with like, "And this is how I died," well, your mind's going to be like, "Okay, how did you die? I want to continue the story and figure this out." It's the same thing with any kind of content you're putting out. You have to have some form of hook that's going to reel them in, and then you can start diving into the meat and bones of that content.
It was interesting because I was talking with Holly earlier, and I was putting together a little informational video on a gentleman doing. He's a botanical artist from Indonesia,
Oh
and
wow.
uh, and he had a little film, and then he had pictures, and and a little questionnaire that he took, and I was gonna put it all together. And I said, well, I'll put the film in the middle. And the film is kind of the centerpiece of the thing, and tell me if this is right. She said, "Well, you used to be able to see." She's cute because she talks to me like I'm an old guy, which I am. She said, you used to be able to do that, but nowadays you need to put the best content at the very front to hook the people in so that they'll stay with it." And that's what you just said. So
Yeah.
that's there's something to be said for you guys that know what you're doing.
And,
That's pretty cool.
and even with that, you can do like a Quentin Tarantino or Christopher Nolan. Start with an answer first, or start with the answer first. That way, you can show them the journey that got you to that answer.
Gotcha. Well, I thought you were gonna say Tarantino that you show somebody getting shot
You're
or,
right. Yeah, just a
blood.
lot of blood and a lot of squibs. That's what you need in today's videos.
Exactly. Now, for a while, you were working to do feature films and that kind of stuff. What do is that a lot harder to do than doing what you do now, or is what you do now just more rewarding?
Now is more rewarding because I mean, when I did the little film production company, I'm originally from Albuquerque, and we did like short films, just little short independent films that we would put at little festivals around Albuquerque. Those are harder, specifically if you're doing something like the 48-hour film festival. Are you familiar with the 48 hour?
Yeah.
So for those that don't know what that is, you have 48 hours to film, edit, write everything, one short film and submit it before the deadline. Otherwise, it doesn't get entered into the drawing to win really good prizes for your video.
So you
Yeah.
got 48 hours. How much coffee did you drink at that
Oh
particular
my
moment?
gosh. It's nonstop, especially if you're the editor. You just
Oh,
don't sleep. And so that's harder because obviously you have a deadline in what I do and what you do for that, but you have to worry about the actors, the crew. You have to worry about a ton of little details. Now, with what I do, there's still a ton of little details, but in my current career, it's just me and my company. And so once I start having a little bit more videographers and social media marketers and other little players within the business, obviously it's going more things are going to be delegated and more things are going to come into play. But for right now, it's a little simpler to build a story, build my shot list, and then just go out and film and create. And it's always a collaborative thing. Whenever I'm filming with something, I'm like, hey, I got these shots that we talked about. Is there something that you would like? That way, I want to get their input. It's their baby. I want them to feel like we're collaborating on it. And so we'll film stuff. If it doesn't work, it's okay. If it works, great. We'll throw it in and we'll put it into the final product.
now does it cost as much because you don't, I assume you don't use film anymore, you use more digital stuff?
All
Is it
digital. Yeah.
is it a lot cheaper than it used to be when you had if you were to go out with film and you were gonna, film a commercial with a guy and he couldn't get it right and you blew a bunch of film,
Yeah.
does it cost a lot less now to do it?
It's definitely a lot less. I mean, because it's so much easier to like if you mess something up, it's like don't worry about it. We'll record it, and it's just because it's digital. You can always just delete the footage or just delete it later when you throw your thumb drive or your memory card in your computer. It's so much easier as opposed to when you actually have film. You know, especially like in movie theaters, they have to cut when they made movie trailers. When film was a thing, they would have to physically cut the film to stitch together a trailer, and that took forever. So if you messed up, you know, it's a big deal. As now, it's like Command Z. You just undo whatever you need to do.
Which is really cool, but at its core, it's still about the creative process,
Correct. Yep.
and that's what separates a good witch from a bad witch.
Couldn't have
Is
said
the
it any better.
is the creative process, and that's why would you recommend if somebody's gonna hire you or
Mhm,
any videographer, do
mhm.
you recommend that they ask for a sample of their work
Yeah.
and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. And I get asked that too. It's like, I've heard you do some good stuff. Do you have any, examples? And so I have two ways to do that. For me, I made a demo reel that I put on my YouTube channel. So they can check out my demo reel. And then at the same time, they can go and see the stuff that I talk about within videography. And then also on my website, there are just works that are projects that I've completed that are on there for the same kind of purpose, just to show you what I've worked on and who I've worked with.
So, for somebody that says, "Hey, I wanna be a videographer," how many hours a week do you work?
Um, it A lot. Well, the reason being is because I constantly want to learn and get better at what I do, and
Right.
I do that by obviously I block out times where I'll read. Like I have a bunch of books that I just kind of read and help myself with, but I also learn by just doing. So on Fridays, usually every Friday are just kind of creative Fridays. Well, I'll go out and just film something random, just to learn like my camera better or learn specific techniques better, and just to do. And so I think if you're going to start out just by honestly getting, even if it's your iPhone, like film something, learn how to move the camera, learn how to frame people. And then from there, you can kind of, build a little repertoire and build a little something that'll lead to the next step. So,
We were talking about sitting around having a serious discussion about, something called that we called the, Seattle Lunch Club. And we
yeah.
were talking about doing filming the 3 or 4 people or the characters in this little thing sitting at a table in a restaurant, uh, filming that and, voicing it and having a discussion about whatever and putting that out there. Can you do that with 1 camera? Do you need more than multiple cameras? Do you need lighting? Can you just walk into a restaurant and shoot something and have it be decent?
You can with something like that with a little bit bigger of an ensemble. Ideally, you'd want more than one camera, but since I only have one camera, I have to kind of play with things. So I've done that before where if I'm doing an introduction on someone and they're talking about their business, I'm not going to spend the entire video like in one angle.
Right.
We're gonna do it in chunks. So you're gonna talk about the first part, we're gonna stop, position the camera at another angle, and then repeat it. That way, when I stitch it together, it looks like I have multiple cameras. So ideally, you'd want more than one, but you can do it with one camera. You just have to kind of do it in sections of little chunks.
And then sit down and put and edit it all together,
Correct.
which is like a jigsaw puzzle.
I see. I like it. I don't know why. It makes no sense. What I normally do is I pour my like a little bit of whiskey and then I'll just edit and it's my go juice. And so I'll just go and just build a story. I love taking all these B-roll shots and just making something. It's rewarding to kind of see it build and shape up into something. And I'm like, there's a story. There it is. It's kind of neat. It's really fun.
And I kinda have the same, dysfunction with, audio editing, because I really enjoy putting it together so that it sounds right and you're getting rid of all the stuff and the stuff that needs to go away and like the clicks and the pops and the,
Yeah.
"Oh, oops, sorry." Those sort those sorts of
Exactly. Or like as you're editing, you catch that. You're like, "Oh, there's that burp. I forgot to move that out." So
Well, and the thing that because I do a lot of live radio, we was doing a show on Wednesday night with my co-host Eric Hall, and he was wearing a jacket that had a zipper in the front, right here, right in front of the
yeah.
microphone. I mean, like right in front of the microphone, and so we're sitting there, and he goes zip, and of course it's audible and it can be heard and it was live, and so I couldn't just let it lie there. So I said, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that was his coat, not his pants zipper. That was because some people don't even recognize when what they're doing is not working or is
Yeah,
breaking down that wall of what you're trying to create.
I agree. Yeah, that's funny. And this episode's brought to you by Levi's, and then you hear the zip. Yeah.
Exactly. Zip, and here he is, and here's his wife. No, I'm kidding. But it was it's I just love the forum, and I love to talk to people like you because what you do is so creative, and it's so great for folks. Now, do you have a lot of people that come to you and just say, "Hey, look, I'm looking to do a commercial." They're looking, and is it why do they come to a videographer to do stuff?
Well, a lot of people that come to me, honestly, it all stems from the introduction video. I've been doing a lot of those. So that's kind of my little niche right now is the introduction video, and I mean, it makes total sense with, like I said about COVID before. And so I'll get that. I'll get, I need introduction. Or I've gotten, we've opened a new location or we're starting our business and we need, to highlight this is the new location or this is our new thing. We need to let people know that we're here. So I get a lot of that. A
In
couple of product placements, but the majority of introductions.
introduction video, what exactly are you talking about when you say that?
So think of introduction as like a visual resume. So it's very simple. It's this is who I am, this is what I do, and here's my call to action. Here's how to reach me. Very, very simple because it's the next few videos after that, that's when you start to dive into the specifics. This is what my service provides. This is what my service does. This is how much the service is. But before that, we need to know who you are. So that's where it all starts. And the introduction video, in my opinion, is it's the most underrated and underutilized video in marketing because it's very basic. It's very, very simple. It's only a minute long, but it gets the point across. It lets you know who you are. And there's that hook, there's your tagline for your business, and then here's how to reach you. So it's every business should at least have an introduction video somewhere on their landing page, even on social media. I mean, they need it somewhere. It's an important video to have.
Now, because you're an actor and also a videographer, are you also a writer? Because that comes into play with this too, doesn't it?
Yeah, same. So I'll take their idea. So when I mentioned before, I asked them to write bullet points. I'll take that bullet point and I'll kind of structure it in a way where the wording isn't so heavily detailed, where that it's so much information that it bogs the listeners down and they're going to lose interest. Kind of like I said, a little virtual resume. You want to tease a little things as to what you do, and so I'll help structure that and just kind of refine it so that it's easier to digest.
And that can be now, how long does it take to produce from beginning to end, from the time you walk into a place, and start talking to the guy and putting together the bullet points and all of that, to when the thing is edited, it's ready to go and ready for distribution? How long does it take to do a minute?
So honestly, for me, it doesn't take too terribly long. So if we had a conversation, you sent me over some of the bullet point lists, I'll get it to you the next day or the day after. And then once we find out what's a good time to actually need to film it, it'll take a day to film. So if it's an introduction video, it'll take a day. And I normally get the first draft out in about 3 to 4 days.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
because
pretty good. So, got a question for you. Not that I haven't had one before, by the way, but I've been told I have a good radio voice, and that
you do.
I've been well, thank you, but I've been also been told that I could lose a little weight, and I'm a little more hair and stuff. So, can you put somebody else's head on somebody else's body and have the voice come out and have it all look the way it's supposed to?
Well, if it's something like that, the easier way is just to do a voiceover. Honestly, that's the easiest way and the fastest way to get it done because I mean, it's just take your voice over what it is that you're talking about and have the visuals there and the details in what you're talking about. That's how I would probably handle it. I mean, if you wanted your head on like I don't know Ryan Reynolds, I mean, I guess we could do that, but it's easier just to do the voiceover.
Well, it's actually, yeah, actually, I would want a new head and a new body. So I guess it'd be somebody else. I just would have somebody else, and they could kind of mime the words, and I could, and
Right.
now, can you marry the audio and video up? Because that's harder to do. I have trouble with that.
Yeah, it is hard. That's what takes a long time, specifically if it's like you have to do like an ADR where the audio was low the day of shooting, like something happened, and the performer would have to come back in and re-record it, and then you match up the audio with their mouth. That takes a really long time, and it's hard to do.
Unless you want it to look like a bad Japanese monster movie,
Just
like
do subtitles at
yeah,
that point. Yeah,
exactly. Hi, how are you? And so I don't know.
exactly.
I don't know. But it sounds like, it sounds like you have a lot of fun doing what you're doing and you enjoy it, and that's then you're passionate about it, and that will make you successful.
Yeah, I love what I do. There's nothing else that I would rather be doing than creating content and just tell stories.
I couldn't agree with you more. I enjoy talking to people and interviewing folks and doing this. I'm having a really good time talking to you. This is fun.
Same, yeah. And you do have a great voice for it. Your voice could be one of those voices that's like on movie trailers. Coming
Yeah.
soon. Yeah, I can hear that.
Coming soon to a place. Well, I've thought about doing that, but and I've done some books. I have done some audiobooks, and that is drudgery. It takes
Audiobooks.
yeah, it takes forever. You have to first of all, you have to read the book because you have to know what what you have to know what's in the book before you can voice the book, and then you have to come up with each scene, and then you have to edit it to make sure that it's right and all the pronunciations are correct, and the
Yeah,
people and stuff, and stuff. It just takes it's tedious for me.
yeah.
So
Voiceover, I would love the voiceovers would be fun to do for like animated films.
yes.
That would be fun. I've done a couple of that little voiceovers before, and it's super fun. I envy those people because that would be great.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Tom Hanks, and he was talking about when he did Toy Story, and that they would have him do the same line 10 or 15 times in 10 or 15 different ways. And they would that's just how their method of operation and
Yep.
and stuff. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it would be great fun. I would love
Yeah.
doing it.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's like I noticed you laughed at that picture of that old guy on my opening.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You know who that really is?
Who?
That's a caricature of Wilford Brimley,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I can see that now.
because I've been told that I look like Wilford Brimley.
That's funny. That's funny.
So now I need just to have some suspenders and a little hat, and I could be him.
Wait,
So
Halloween episode. There you go.
that exactly right. It's exactly right. So it's fun. Now we actually had a guy. His name is Randy Hathaway, and he's a singer songwriter, and he did a show with us, and a director saw it and hired him and his music for their low budget horror film that's being filmed on Bainbridge Island.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, so we're gonna go, and we're gonna go and be a couple extras,
Oh,
and
love it.
yeah, because it's in a cafe or something, and we're just gonna be sitting there while people get stabbed and stuff like that. I don't
Just a
know.
normal weekend. Yeah.
Normal weekend, just having a good time. Just having a good time. Now you've got a couple of courses out or are in process. Tell us about
Correct.
those.
Yeah, so I have one that's a 4-week one-on-one videography course where it helps companies start from the three processes: the planning, the recording, and the promoting. So it's really designed for if you're a brand new business like a startup or a medium-sized business that are just kind of needing the process, need a little bit of extra help. And so what we do within those weeks, we pretty much just dissect what you're doing and kind of see what's working, what's not working, implement a lot of little plans that could kind of help you get you to where you need to, and kind of educate you along the way. And the second one, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And the second course is I'm still editing it, so it's 4 videos that'll help you to feel more comfortable on camera, utilizing Instagram as your stepping stone. So it'll help you learn social media marketing and feel more relaxed, more at ease in front of the camera.
Which is really, unfortunately, the way it is now. If you're not comfortable, I mean, because of TikTok and all of that, because what are those 30-second videos?
Yeah, 30 seconds, or TikTok goes, they have one that's a little bit longer that you can do. Yeah.
Do you find that doing those and doing 30-second shots and stuff and putting them up there, if they start getting some plays, do they make any money doing that? Is that
They
just
do. They
do they?
do, but I mean it's not much, but it'll build over time because there's some people that actually make a living just off of TikTok or YouTube. But it's one of those things, it takes a long time. And if you're solely focused on doing that, it's going to be a while. It takes a little bit of time. Yeah.
Well, and because I found in the podcasting world, as you I'm sure know, that there are at least 250,000 active podcasts.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Now there are as many as 2 million that are out there. One of the things that I wish that they would clean up is that people will go and they'll do a podcast for like 10 or 15 episodes. They'll think it's going to get thousands of views. They get three. That's their mom and their uncle and,
Right.
and their friend, and so they get discouraged and they quit. But
Yep.
those podcasts stay up there forever, or
Yeah,
for
they're forever. Yeah, it's like YouTube videos. It's forever content. I mean, it's always going to be up. So there's always going to be an audience, but it's just learning your audience is the key. Listening to what they are resonating with and crafting your content towards that.
and as Holly would say, narrowing down your niche. Is
Yeah.
that is that
Yep.
an appropriate term?
Yep, it's appropriate. Yeah, she's exactly right. Yeah, like I said, my niche has been a lot of the introduction videos, and so that's what I've been kind of promoting, and then utilizing education in the middle of that as well. So that's been my niche, and it takes a while to find that. You have to kind of play and figure out what's working, and it'll happen. It's just you testing the waters is the best analogy I can think of.
If you were a guy like me and you wanted to hire a guy like you to coach him on how to do better at what he does,
Mhm.
do you do that as well?
I do, yeah. I mean, I did one actually not too long ago of just helping a real estate agent just simply learn how to frame herself in her videos. Just simple as that, because just the understanding of certain things. I definitely do little coaching like that, and I'm starting to really enjoy it.
Well, I think you're really good at it.
No, I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you.
that because everybody can, I've been told, and it's true, everybody, regardless of how special and unique you are, everybody can use a coach
Agreed. Yeah,
because you need to look at you from a different point of view.
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So it's really is important. But and by the way, I think maybe Holly's listening, so if she wants to comment in, she certainly can if she's got a question. I don't know, but so if somebody wants to get a hold of you, young man, how do they do
Yeah.
it again?
So you can send me an email at chavezcreative@yahoo.com, or you can send me or call me at 505, which is still, I have an area code from Albuquerque. I haven't changed it. I've been to Seattle almost 8 years. But you can call me at 505-238-8517, and just let's talk. Let's figure out what I could do to help you out.
Oh, that would be odd because everybody, marketing today is not like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Everybody,
True.
you have got to really, everybody's got to be involved with marketing, or you're not going to get your word out.
Yep. And it's always evolving. So
Yeah. Now, how would you just off the cuff, and don't charge me for this, but how would you, with 250,000 podcasts out there, how do you get heard?
well, like I said before, we would have to look at who your competition is and seeing, what you're doing as opposed to what they're doing, and just kind of going from there, figuring out with your demographic and your insights as to where your listeners. Has there been a dip in your show? Like figuring out all these little things, looking back at your data, and then kind of attacking from there and figuring out what we could do to raise those numbers and to make you stand out from the other competition that you have going on.
Because the competition is pretty fierce, but there
Yeah.
isn't a lot of people that do what I do. That's
Yep.
that's the interesting thing is a lot of them are into politics. A lot of them are into some of them are into religion. I'm not into those things. I'm into talking to people like you and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different.
See, and it's the same with me. There are a dime a dozen videographers, and so for me, it's that fun excitement, the educational aspect of it that I really enjoy, and I try to make every project that I'm in not a stressful environment, but something fun. It has to be fun, because especially if I'm filming you, if you're not enjoying the day that we're filming, it's going to show on camera. So you obviously enjoy what you're doing. I enjoy what I'm doing. It's a perfect match. And then, great content spawns from that.
That's interesting because I can imagine, time is money. And if you've got somebody that is not performing the way that, even though you're coaching them right, and they're not performing the way that you need them to, and you got an appointment at 3 o'clock, and you're nowhere near getting the tape and the footage that you need, I imagine that can be a little stressful.
It can be, yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of the times, if there's an aspect like that where they're just really not getting it, we would have coaching sessions beforehand as well. So if it's every person is different, every business is completely unique. So it would have to be set project by project, individual by individual, and kind of figure out what they need either beforehand, that'll help the day of shooting, or just maybe taking a step back and revisiting that at a later date. So
Do you ever teach them how to do improvisational theater?
a little bit. So I mean, I'll start with if you're uncomfortable in front of the camera, let's talk about things that you're interested in besides work. What are your hobbies? And so go from there, and then I'll start asking questions of like, oh, how does that feed into your business? And then it kind of trains them to kind of go from this thing of like, I love gardening. Oh, but what garden led me to, and then it leads into their actual business. And in a way it kind of helps with that improvisational aspect, so that if they are talking about what they do for a living and they mess up, they'll know where they are, because they've had this little tiny, like, just nonchalant conversation that there's no stress. And so having that experience and that little conversation will help kind of set the roadmap for when we're actually filming, or if they're in an actual presentation.
That is really cool. Good job.
Thank
Because you
you.
can, because and you are the ultimate in relationship and personal sales. because you've got to have a great relationship with everybody that you work with, or they're not going to pass your name to anybody else.
Agreed. Yeah.
So congratulations. It's Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great, Kevin. Thank you so much.
I really have enjoyed it. And if you will, so let's go you through your information one more time to make sure everybody
Sure.
gets it. Go ahead.
So my email address is chavezcreative@yahoo.com. My website, www.chavezcreative.co. And if you would like to more information about anything else, you can call me at 505-238-8517.
Say that one more time.
505-238-8517.
And I used to be in sales. I used to be in sales management. I interviewed for a lot of jobs. I can tell you this: if you want to make an impression with an employer that is different than the other guys that are giving them a written resume, have an introductory video done. That makes a tremendous amount of sense, because you're separating yourself from the rest of the crowd. And then in this day and age, that's what you got to do.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Chris Chavez has been our guest, and he's a videographer. Go hire him. He'd do a great job. And you stay right there. I'll be right back. Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other, because each other's all we got. See you next time on My Independence Report.